Hello everyone, and welcome back to Lost Worlds. Today, we are back with another exhilarating piece of history, and this one is for the books. On the morning of May 29th, 1453, the Roman Empire, which had survived for 1,100 years, ended. Not with a whimper, with 80,000 Ottoman soldiers, the world's largest cannon, and one emperor who refused to run. This is the full story of Constantinople, the greatest city in the medieval world, the last stand of an empire, and the single day that changed history forever. When Rome fell in 476 AD, the Roman Empire didn't end. It just moved east. For another 1,000 years, the Roman Empire continued from this city on this strait, between two continents, the city its founders called Nova Roma, the city the world called Constantinople. It had survived 23 sieges: the Goths, the Persians, the Arabs, the Bulgars, the Crusaders, who actually sacked it in 1204 and still couldn't hold it. Every empire that had ever tried to take Constantinople had eventually given up and gone home. But by 1453, the empire that had refused to die for 1,000 years had shrunk to almost nothing. The population had collapsed from 400,000 to fewer than 50,000. There was no money, no allies who were coming, and on the horizon to the west, the largest army ever assembled against these walls. Leading it, a 21-year-old sultan who everyone had underestimated. That was their last mistake. Mehmed II became sultan at 19. The European powers breathed a sigh of relief. His father, Murad II, had been formidable. This boy, they assumed, would be manageable. They were wrong about almost everything. Mehmed had been obsessed with Constantinople since childhood. He had memorized its walls, its layout, its history of sieges, its weaknesses. He spoke 6 languages. He read Greek and Latin military history in the original. He understood the city's geography. Sea on 3 sides, the legendary Theodosian walls on the 4th, better than most of its defenders did. Within months of becoming sultan, he had already begun his plan. He built a fortress, Rumeli Hizaren, directly on the European shore of the Bosphorus, in Byzantine territory, without asking permission. It took 4 months. It cut Constantinople's supply line from the Black Sea. When Byzantine ambassadors arrived to protest, he had them executed. The message was unambiguous. There would be no negotiation. There would be no ransom. There was only one thing Mehmed wanted, and he had wanted it his entire life. The Theodosian walls had stood for 1,000 years. They had been built in the 5th century, a double wall with a moat, 12 meters high, 6 meters thick at the base. No siege engine ever built had made a serious impression on them. Mehmed needed something that didn't exist yet. He found a man who could build it. Orban was a Hungarian engineer who had first offered his services to the Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI. Constantine, desperate and bankrupt, couldn't afford him. So Orban went to Mehmed instead. When Mehmed asked what Orban could build, the engineer said this: "I can shatter to dust not only these walls, but the very walls of Babylon itself." It took 60 oxen and 400 men to move the basilica gun to the walls of Constantinople. When it fired for the first time against the Theodosian walls, the sound was heard from miles away. Buildings inside the city shook. People fell to their knees. Some believed it was the end of the world. They weren't entirely wrong. The ball punched through the outer wall and left a crater 6 feet wide. The Theodosian walls, which had never been breached by any enemy, were now being destroyed at a rate of roughly 1 wall section per day. The rules of siege warfare had changed permanently. On that day, in front of those walls, the medieval world ended and the modern world began. Constantinople had one advantage Mehmed couldn't simply bombard away. The Golden Horn, the city's harbor, was protected by the largest chain in the medieval world. It stretched 300 meters across the inlet. No ship could pass it. And without controlling the Golden Horn, Mehmed couldn't surround the city completely. The northern seawalls were safe. For 2 weeks, the Ottoman Navy tried to break through or sail around it. They failed every time. The Byzantines even managed to sink several Ottoman ships in engagements on the water, moments of unexpected victory that briefly lifted spirits inside the dying city. Then, Mehmed did something that still seems impossible. He moved his fleet overland. Overnight, 70 ships were dragged up a hill and relaunched inside the Golden Horn. The Byzantines woke to find the Ottoman fleet behind their chain. The northern walls, which had never needed heavy defense, were now under attack. The city was fully surrounded, land and sea, every gate, every wall. 50,000 people, surrounded by 80,000 soldiers, and the largest navy in the Mediterranean. For 55 days, Constantinople held. Every night, the defenders worked through the dark to repair the damage the cannons had done that day. Stones, rubble, barrels of earth, anything to fill the craters before dawn brought the bombardment again. Constantine XI himself worked alongside his soldiers. He slept at the walls. He ate with the garrison. He refused every suggestion that he flee by ship. Several were offered from the Venetian and Genoese allies, who were beginning to understand that help from the west was never coming. In late April, a small relief fleet of 4 ships fought through the entire Ottoman navy and reached the city. The city exploded in celebration. Crowds on the walls cheering, bells ringing, the moment of joy that the siege had been waiting for. It wasn't enough. 4 ships against 320. The bombardment continued. By mid-May, exhaustion was setting in. The garrison of 7,000 was defending 14 miles of walls. Every man was fighting on almost no sleep. The breaches were getting harder to repair. The basilica gun was destroying sections faster than the defenders could rebuild them. On the evening of May 28th, Constantine XI called his commanders together for the last time. On the night of May 28, 1453, the Hagia Sophia was full for the last time. Every person left in Constantinople came, soldiers still wearing their armor, civilians who had been filling sandbags, priests who had refused to flee, the emperor himself. For nearly 1,000 years, the Hagia Sophia had been the greatest church in Christendom. Its dome, when it was built in 537 AD, was the largest in the world. The mosaics inside glittered with gold. A scholar who visited in its early years wrote that it seemed suspended from heaven by a golden chain. Constantine addressed his commanders after the service. He thanked them. He acknowledged they were about to die. He asked them to remember what they were defending. Then he rode to the walls. He did not sleep. Outside, the Ottoman army was also preparing. Mehmed had told his soldiers that the city that had held out for 55 days would fall before dawn. He had promised them 3 days of the city's riches, the custom of the age for a city taken by assault. 90,000 men were ready. At midnight, the drums began. The assault came in 3 waves. First, the irregular troops, the least trained, sent to exhaust the defenders and find weaknesses. The Byzantines held. Second, the Anatolian regulars. 2 hours of brutal close quarters, fighting in the breach. The Byzantines still held. Then came the Janissaries, Mehmed's elite infantry, the best soldiers in the world. 50,000 men in the 3rd wave, fresh, disciplined, and carrying the knowledge that failure was not something Mehmed rewarded. At approximately 4 a.m., 2 things happened almost simultaneously that decided the battle. Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander who had held the critical section of the walls for the entire siege, was struck by a crossbow bolt or bullet and had to be carried from the battle. And a small gate, The Kirka Porta was found unlocked. No one knows how. A mistake, negligence, or sabotage. Ottoman soldiers poured through. The defenders saw Ottoman banners appearing above the walls from inside the city. The cry went up, "The city is taken." Some fled to the harbor. Some barricaded themselves in their houses. Some kept fighting. Constantine XI kept fighting. Constantine XI, Palaiologos, was offered his life. Mehmed sent word before the final assault. "Surrender the city and your life will be spared." Constantine's reply: "To surrender the city to you is not in my power or anyone else's. We are all here of our own free will and will die here without regret." When the city fell, his body was never found. The Byzantines, who refused to accept that their world was gone, created a legend. He had not died, they said. An angel had turned him to marble at the moment of the city's fall. He waited beneath the Golden Gate, the marble emperor, for the day he would rise and reclaim Constantinople. He is still waiting. Mehmed II entered Constantinople later that day. He was 21 years old. He walked to the Hagia Sophia and stood under the dome. He wept. Even he understood what had been lost. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe that are still echoing today. Greek scholars fleeing west brought ancient manuscripts with them, texts that had been preserved in Constantinople for 1,000 years, while Western Europe forgot them. Those manuscripts helped ignite the Renaissance. The Ottoman control of the eastern trade routes pushed European powers to find alternatives. Within 40 years, Columbus would sail west, looking for a new route to Asia, and accidentally find a continent. The Roman Empire, the one that had started in the city of Rome, moved east to Constantinople and refused to die for 1,000 years, was finally, permanently, over. One thing survived. The Hagia Sophia is still there. Built in 537 AD, church for 916 years, mosque for 481 years, museum, mosque again. It has watched empires rise and fall from the same spot on the Bosphorus for nearly 1,500 years. Some things are too extraordinary to destroy. Subscribe to @LostWorlds9 for more such content. Until next time.